Hello everybody and welcome to today's video, a continuation in the series on Julius Caesar. Everything I go through comes from Mr. Bruff's Guide to Julius Caesar, available for £3.99 at mrbruff.com. It was co-written by Kerry Lewis and myself, and it is a really detailed guide. It contains the complete original text, a line-by-line translation into modern English, and detailed analysis of every scene. What we're going to go through today is an analysis of Act 1, Scene 2. So if you remember, Act 1, Scene 1 revealed Flavius's and Marullus's antagonism towards Caesar, and Act 1, Scene 2 opens at the festival of Lupercalia, with evidence of his popularity. The festival, held on February the 15th, was a spiritual event which aimed to cleanse the city of evil spirits and to release health and fertility. And Shakespeare's use of setting, therefore, introduces the theme of the supernatural. Portents, which we think of as signs or warnings that something momentous will happen, and omens, which we think of as events that are predictions of the future, emerge from the beginning of the scene as a motif, a recurring idea. The soothsayer, that's the fortune teller, warns Caesar to beware the Ides of March, suggesting that something significant will happen on that day. Now, the line only has 6 syllables instead of the usual 10 of blank verse to emphasize the great importance of the message, and a contemporary audience would note the soothsayer's warning and associate Caesar with some sort of tragic event. Elizabethans believed that fate controlled people's lives and that their destiny was predetermined and set. They had no power to change it, and in their eyes, therefore, Caesar is doomed. Unlike many, if not most Elizabethans, Cassius does not believe in fate. He tells Brutus, men at some times were masters of their fates. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings. In other words, we are slaves because we've chosen to be that way, rather than because the gods have decided it for us. We learn in Act 5, Scene 1 that Cassius is a follower of Epicurus, a Greek philosopher who taught that the gods do not intervene in human lives, so we have the free will to do what we want. Cassius's Epicurean beliefs, therefore, motivate him to conspire against Caesar and to change the course of history himself, rather than waiting for the gods to act. Now, by way of contrast to this, Brutus's attitude towards fate derives more from the philosophical school of Stoicism, which flourished in ancient Rome and Greece. Stoics believed that the gods controlled everything in the universe, and the only way to gain wisdom and become happy was to restrain your emotions. And at this moment in the play, Brutus accepts Caesar's popularity despite being troubled. By hanging back from the procession, telling Cassius, I am not gamesome, we see that Brutus is demonstrating stoicism by refusing to join in the celebrations. He also, however, appears to be troubled, and this hints at his concerns about Caesar's rule. So Brutus's stoic approach to life explains why he later focuses on reason, ignoring his private feelings when he decides in the next act to join the conspiracy. Another theme, then, that dominates this scene is what we learn about a person's private self in relation to their public actions or feelings of responsibility. In Act 1, Scene 2, we see Antony briefly, but through his behaviour we learn important facts about his private character that will be significant as the play progresses. For example, Caesar instructs Antony when running the course to touch Calpurnia, and Antony replies, when Caesar says do this, it is performed. From his response, then, we have evidence that out of the deep loyalty to Caesar that he has, Antony's happy to follow orders without question. And this helps the audience to understand his loyalty when he later avenges Caesar's death. It's also significant that Shakespeare's chosen to depict Antony as naked as part of the public ceremony. For ancient Romans, male nakedness had negative connotations of slavery, as slaves were usually naked when they were auctioned to the highest bidder. And this might foreshadow how, for a short time, Antony will, like a slave, keep his private thoughts hidden from the assassins when he appears to agree with their reasons for killing Caesar. However, for the ancient Greeks, male nakedness had connotations of heroism. In the Olympic Games, for example, the male participants competed naked, and if we interpret Antony's nakedness with the more positive connotation, we see further foreshadowing of Antony as the heroic avenger. So although Caesar is a powerful public man, there are various signs or hints of weakness in his private character in this scene. By ignoring the soothsayer's warning, for example, we learn that Caesar sometimes lacks judgment, as he doesn't listen to other points of view. And this lack of judgment is also symbolized by his deafness in one ear. He tells Antony, "Come on my right hand, for this ear is deaf," indicating that he hears what he chooses to hear rather than considering a range of views. For example, Caesar ignores his private thoughts and believes Antony when the latter tells him that Cassius is not dangerous. And of course, the dramatic irony produced by this statement is strong, as the audience knows that Cassius has already begun to plot. Interestingly, Caesar's reasons for not trusting Cassius relate to how the latter neglects elements of his private life. Cassius's inability to appreciate the arts arouses Caesar's suspicions. Cassius loves no plays, hears no music, and Caesar sees that Cassius does not nurture his spirit. His public life and ambitions dominate his personality. Therefore, his public persona is not to be trusted, and is very dangerous. So Caesar is an intelligent man to understand Cassius, and is right to be suspect of him. But as we've already looked at, he foolishly allows his opinion to be swayed by Antony when he says that Cassius is not dangerous. So Caesar is therefore fallible. We also see that Caesar, the public hero, is fallible in his private life. Despite ignoring the soothsayer's warning, he superstitiously asks Antony to touch Calpurnia as he's running in order to shake off the sterile curse of her being barren. And this illustrates that Caesar's worried that she's infertile, hinting at an ambition to begin a dynasty, to start his heirs and his future kingdom. So his apparent inability to produce an heir with Calpurnia also poses questions about his physical capability. This is his third marriage, so it's surprising he only has one daughter, Julia, from his first marriage, and of course the illegitimate son Caesarion by Cleopatra. Shakespeare investigates the intersection between the private and public spheres through Caesar's other physical weaknesses. In ancient Rome, and indeed in Elizabethan England, the falling sickness, or epilepsy, was regarded with some suspicion and ignorance. This might have made the sufferer incapable of ruling in the eyes of observers. So we can see from this that Caesar's not as all-powerful as he would like to believe when we hear reports of his epileptic fit. This is a physical foreshadowing of his literal and metaphorical fall from power when he's assassinated. In this scene, we see the influence of the Greek philosopher Aristotle through contemporary Roman beliefs about the public self in relation to manhood and honour. After Caesar's epileptic fit, Casca reports that Caesar offered them, that's the crowd, his throat to cut. And this could be because, knowing an epileptic fit was coming, he refused the crown and now feels publicly shamed. Aristotle said there are no conditions on which life is not worth having. Caesar would rather not live with the shame of the public epileptic fit, or life without the crown, or both. So we've already learnt that Casca would rather not live as a slave, and we'll learn at the end of the play that Brutus would rather not live with the stain of defeat and dishonour. And this foreshadows his later suicide, which is perceived as noble by Antony and Octavius, in turn heightening the contrast with Cassius's dishonourable death in Act 5. Now, what I'm going to do in this series is I'm going to leave out some of the analysis. So this is less than half of the analysis of Act 1, Scene 2 that you'll find in the revision guide. So make sure you pick up a copy and give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it.